Forbes India presents Freshworks Tech Shots, the new CX.
Hello and welcome to Forbes India presents Freshworks Tech Shots, the new CX. This is a series where we will explore how fast-changing customer expectations are causing companies to invest heavily in transforming their customer experience approach. Now, the theme of today's discussion is the future of customer service, transforming CX for success. In this discussion, we will explore various CX strategies, priorities, and generative AI capabilities that companies can use to grow customer value and emerge successful in a turbulent economy. Joining me today for this engaging discussion are Ambika Sultania, Business Head for CX and CRM for the India and SAARC region at Freshworks; Mukesh Chaliha, Head of Operations at India Bulls Housing Finance; Tirunavakarsa, our COO at Kinara Capital; and Anand Narayanan, Chief Product Officer at Simply Learn. All right, let's talk about the future of CX. But to do that, we'll first need to understand where we have been. Tiru, let me come to you first to try and understand this rapid evolution that has taken place, especially when it comes to customer expectations and customer experience. Post-pandemic, we've seen so much change happening. Take us through how your enterprise has navigated that, and also the key trends that you see, which are making a difference, which is making CX such a vital talking point among organizations.
Yeah, thank you, Gautam. So, just to talk about the CX from a fintech perspective, because we are a fintech spanning over 133 branches with more than working around 4,000 pin codes. So, with the different culture and different context, the most important thing what we are seeing is now the customer expectations have been very high. So they want to decide based on one of the survey done by the Salesforce. They want to decide what kind of company they want to take a service based on the customer service experience during the sales process or the loan process and after the disbursement process. That is one key thing. And the second thing is also, as you said, post-pandemic, the digital adoption is so high. Even a survey within which Kinara Capital we did, what we have seen is surprisingly 96% of our customer have access to smartphones, which is so, we thought maybe around 60-70% will be there. So the smartphone adoption or the digital adoption also, now because of the UPI and everything, people are so used to this digital adoption that they want the service immediately and they want service completely at their doorstep services. These two things are very important. Apart from that, the competition also makes it so important for us that if we don't give a proper customer service, there is a huge competition in terms of customer retention. If you want to retain the customer, then definitely customer service becomes an important factor, particularly for a fintech company like us.
All right. Anand, let me come to you from the edutech perspective, because they are at the sharpest end of the innovation sphere. It's a very hyper-competitive space, and there is always a lot of expectation and a lot of headlines tracking your sector. So from the perspective of Simply Learn, what are the customer service matrices that you track regularly, considering your consumer cohorts, your industry is very dynamic? And also in that context, the role that customer service and customer support teams play in elevating the brand perception among customers. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and I think, Gautam, to start off, Simpleon, for example, does business today in 155 countries, completely online, and so completely digital enabled, if you may. And to your question, how do we do customer metrics? How do we measure that? We actually start with the customer and we look at what are they looking for out of our programs. And it comes to actually just simply two different outcomes that they're looking for. Number one, they enroll. They want to get the certificate from an MIT, a Caltech, or an IIT Kanpur for that matter. So they want to earn that certificate and actually show that on their social profile. But after that, it is actually it's a way for them to then switch to a career which is more exciting or more in tune with what they want to do, right? So it's really two things. I want to complete my program. I want to get a career outcome out of it. So our metrics are very simple. What percentage of people actually complete the program, and what percentage of those people then actually find a career transition? So those are the top level metrics. We break that further down. We look at week by week retention numbers. We look at experience numbers below that. And then we look at CSAT numbers below that. So this is actually a 5-level matrixed metrics, section, if you may. But the top level metrics that we all track at the end of the day is retention and outcomes, right? Those are the two metrics we track.
All right. Now, in the context of that 5-level metrics that you say, there's been a lot of automation, which is a lot of work happening behind the scenes to present you the data so that you can make the right decision. But it also brings to us this question of achieving the right balance between human interaction and automation when it comes to providing the right kind of CX, the authentic kind of CX, as folks would say in this time. How do you walk that tightrope?
Great question. And I think we had this discussion actually just now a few minutes back as well. See, to me, actually, it really comes down to what is the core IP that you as a brand stand for and what are you actually delivering to the customer? And I always differentiate what is the core experience that you're trying to deliver and how do you want to deliver that? And there is absolutely zero compromise on that, right? Then there are ancillary things that support that core business and that core IP. And you have a lot of flexibility in how you want to run that. So if you look at it from edutech and specifically Simplilearn's perspective, the live class delivery, the completion of the program, doing project assessments really, really well and testing people on their capability to do something, and then finding them a role. This is the core IP. So people are coming to us for this. Now, do we need a custom-built CRM? Do we need a custom-built chatbot? The answer is absolutely not, right? So I think every business, and especially in EdTech, that is definitely true, find that core IP and the core value proposition that you're offering and really go after that experience. So then let's break that down further. We take the ancillary services and we think of what's industry standard, what can we use, what is going to take us to the next level, where we don't have to innovate there. So like I said, CRM, community, we use Slack. It's an off-the-shelf capability that's there. CRM, we have Salesforce. We work very well with those products. But when it comes down to the core learning experience, we actually use a lot of, what I consider slightly more cutting edge. We're of course built on the cloud. We use data analytics. We have AI models that run behind the scenes. But some of the things we do today, for example, Gen AI takes the project submission from the learner, and it actually goes through that and creates a rubric on the fly, provides feedback that our SMEs then read through and adjust. So we're able to give extremely detailed and very deep feedback, which is both human and tech-enabled. That's an example. The second example I'll give you is today, if you come to our curriculum, the curriculum actually has been, of course, created by an SME, but it's also run through a Gen AI program to verify and validate that this is relevant in the market today and it's actually useful, right? So there's a lot of validation that's happening through tech as well. Now, there are areas where we use which are not customer visible. We talked about average handle time, for example, right? Very simple metric that everybody thinks is, what's the big deal in that? But the reality is when you're doing close to 75,000 active users, you have 250,000 enrollments every year, and you have about 5 to 7 million users free and paid together, AHT becomes actually really hard to deliver, right? So behind the scenes, in terms of efficiency models, we use a lot of capability behind the scenes to automate a lot of the flows and provide intelligence so that the routing of these tickets is done right, the chat is done correctly, and that the highest priority is given the highest priority, right? Now, this could be a long discussion. I can spend 30 minutes on this topic, but at a very high level, I'll repeat what I just said. Invest a lot of human capital and technology in a very deep manner where your core IP sits, and automate everything else, right? That will be my just simple solution to that.
Fantastic. Let me expand on that and bring Mukesh in to get the India Bulls housing finance perspective on transforming customer service expectations, and also this world that we are in where it's about improving your profitability by reducing costs, whereby a lot of the automation and generative AI themes are coming forward, because you have to again walk the tightrope. You have to be profitable, but you also have to provide an authentic experience to your customers. You have to be fast, because in today's world, people expect something which would earlier take 2 or 3 days, let's say a loan, would be processed in a matter of seconds or minutes. So your perspective on this whole collection of issues which have come about.
India Bulls are dealing with the home loans. So home loans, basically, some part we can say can be automated, but because we deals in the property documents, there is a personal touch is required. To and fro from the customer side is required. So when we are talking about, let's say we break up into the salaried and non-salaried customers. So in terms of salaried customer, we can automate the process through different APIs linked to your system. You can take the data from through online systems and get the information about the customer, like the bank statement, ITR, or some KYC documents from the customer side. Whereas non-individual customer, where we require the balance sheet, P&L from the customer side, their cash flows, their turnover, then there is a physical interaction is required from the customer side. And after underwriting also, when the customer has to submit their property documents, they have to come personally to the branches. So there is a mix of automation and personal touch with the customer. And post disbursement also, in terms of where we are talking about the deliverables, where we can automate the deliverables, like let's say statement of account, repayment schedule, IT certificate to the customer, or you can say a list of document to the customer. These can be automated, and we have also done this automated through apps, through online portal, through WhatsApp services, through call center also, raising their service requests, and automatically they are getting the mails through in their inbox.
And generative AI, is that helping you say optimize your customer service, customer support aspects?
Yeah, definitely, because on these, when we are talking about the deliverables, their interaction between the customer and the employee is very less. Everything is a self-services. Customer can take their repayment schedule or statement of account at sitting his place through WhatsApp and all other facilities. But when we are talking about customer is doing part payments or the foreclosure, customer do visit to the branches by making the payments or collecting the document after foreclosure of the payment. Because home loan, there is a BT option is there. So whenever the BT is happen, the lawyer of the other bank is coming along with the customer for taking the documents. So there is a mix and match of
Some things are
automation.
always phygital and require the
Right,
human
right.
experience. That's your aspect.
Yeah.
All right. Thiru, let me get you to comment on this, because that was the housing finance aspect. You service MSMEs in terms of loans. How are the dynamics different in terms of value use cases, and especially when we bring in Gen AI and automation and self-service?
Yeah, I think from a fintech perspective, our overall turnaround time in any providing a loan has reduced from 7 days to like 48 hours now. That's thanks to all the automation, everything we have done, and even for customer service also nowadays. Most of it we have automated. Even starting from a reminder call is a robotic call now, or an SMS or a voice message or a WhatsApp message. Everything that we don't have, like we don't need to call everyone to give a reminder or something like that. Even the payments, which used to be the physical payment, now we have integrated with 400 different payment gateways, so that people can go to any of the stores and pay, or have integrated with the payment gateways, like different payment banks, where people can go and easily kind of do the payments. So the one thing is the personalization in terms of service, and nowadays people talk about super personalization, hyper personalization, and stuff like that. So that is the kind of a customer service which we are focusing. Like when if the thing is now we are talking about the three important data points from a customer KYC perspective, which is centralized in a CKYC. The other is the revenue, which is the bank statement, which is centralized through an account aggregator system. And the third one is the credit bureau reports. Obviously, it's been there for long. That is centralized. So only thing is the customer have to think that they need a loan and then say consent, then they can get a loan immediately. That's the kind of centralized database which I mean, fortunately, India is so advanced in these things compared to so many other countries. So I think we have come to that kind of an instant gratification kind of a situation where customer needs everything immediate. The customer we are servicing, the working capital need is immediate. They cannot wait for the loan is applied and then it has to be visited and then it has to be verified and then it will take 10 times to go to the different institution. All those things have gone now. People can sit at their place and they can avail the loan. And also post disbursement, all those services, everything is getting kind of automated in a way. So that's the kind of situation we are in, and going forward this is going to increase the way the kind of digital adoption is happening in the country.
Absolutely. The momentum is just picking up. Yes, Mukesh.
This point, what he's mentioning about the online payments. So definitely this is going in helping each and every organization, because when the customer is paying online, so there is no manual intervention is there. Directly the receipt is updating to the customer statement of account. Earlier we used to punch that receipt in the customer account and then printing that receipt and handing over to the customer. Now directly whenever the customer is making the payment, there is a dynamic
Digital
QR
record.
code is there. So the bank is providing those facilities. Scanning that, directly updating to the customer account, and directly customer is getting the receipt on the WhatsApp. There is no physical paper, is entire paperless activity. So we are also looking at ECGS compliant on that piece.
Absolutely. And that's something the world has looked at the India experiment and marveled, especially this ease of payments that we talk about and how that ecosystem has so evolved rapidly, where it's not just a tier one phenomenon, it's also tier two, tier three, tier four. And in a sense, it's also driving the financial inclusion agenda where the unbanked are coming into the system and availing all the services and facilities
So
that
as per
companies like
me,
you
there
offer.
is no as of now tier one, tier two anything, because
It's
everybody
Bharat.
is using smartphones, and earlier the customer is not familiar about the rate of interest, how the rate of interest, especially in terms of home loans, are moving up and down. Now customer is questioning to the employee how these rates are increased, justify those rates.
An aware customer
Yeah,
brings new dynamics in
correct.
terms of engagement with the brand. All right.
Hmm.
On that note, Ambika, let me get you in to give us this enablement perspective. As you've heard players from the fintech, from the edutech space, and from the housing finance space explain to us the dynamics that are at work for their companies. Your comments, your response to that, and also from a value use case perspective, as these new themes come around, generative AI, self-service, automation. And since Freshworks is in the business of making business easier for their customers, give us the roundup on all these talking points.
Sure, absolutely. So, Gautam, I mean, as we rightly hear from everybody, right? I mean, and not just limiting ourselves to edutech or fintech. I think across all industries, definitely generative AI is making it to the headlines, and for right reasons, right? We all understand that there is a starting difference between the world that exists with AI and without AI, right? Now, some of the quick wins that you could really leverage AI on. I think most of us agree, and this is the same thing that Anand and Mukesh was chiming in as well. The human-like experience, right? I mean, that's something which is very, very critical. We all the leaders in the space, in the CX space, they all agree that automating the self-service is really the right investments, right? But our reports show, and I was just referring to some of the Forrester reports, almost 67% of these customer leaders are very doubtful about the value that is really coming in from self-serve, right? Because the whole human-like element and the response that is really expected out in today's world is not something that is was getting delivered through this. So you can actually use Gen AI to ensure that you could augment the natural language processing, and which enable the bots to understand the customer intent better, right? And then come up with answers which are more human like, and which really are resulting in effective resolutions, rather than just simply wasting the time of the customer and getting them frustrated about the experience that they're actually getting, right? So I would suggest that leverage AI can definitely be leveraged for automating the self-service. I think you have a question. Oh, okay, sure. And in addition to this, I think it is also very, very critical that you improve and boost the agent productivity. Right, most of these agents are just receiving similar kind of questions every day, and there is a lot of productivity which is lost when they just have to just keep answering the repeat questions, right? So Gen AI, what it actually does is it can actually also help, and that's how we are leveraging the AI platform. It actually helps set that context in front of the agents. It gives them a unified view of the customer. What has been the past engagements? What are some of the things that are troubling him today? What is the customer life cycle journey that the customer has really seen? So these unification of everything into one single screen enables the agent to effectively resolve the queries much faster, right?
Absolutely.
There are very interesting things that we are actually doing.
Could you share a few examples, right? This unified view of the customer.
Yes.
When we look at the applications in diverse industries, let's look at a loan.
Yeah,
How does it make that entire process end to end better?
Sure. So first of all, I mean, and especially for the example that, the topic that you have actually taken. See, now let's say, for example, there are different teams which are engaging with the customer, right? There is a sales team who actually onboards this customer. There is a marketing team who's actually sending out proactive messages. And then you actually have the support team who's actually serving the customer, right? Now, if all of these are working in silos, it becomes really, really challenging for this agent to really come up with an effective solution, because he doesn't have a history and context around each of these, right? So the AI actually helps unify all of these, crunches through a lot of customer data that is actually available, brings you that context which is most relevant for this customer to solve for the challenge that he's actually at hand. So, I mean, if I look at some of the live examples and some of the cases that we can actually talk about, so Paytm, right? If you look at Paytm, which has been one of really large customers that we have been serving over the last 3 years, and we have deflected almost 85% of the queries that are coming on board through the chatbot, intelligent chatbot that we have actually built, and this is all powered by AI, right? If you look at Dunzo, I'm sure most of us actually use Dunzo for, I mean, that's another automation that we have really brought in our life. In similar fashions, we have actually automated a lot of mundane tasks for Dunzo in order to give value back to the customers. So these are interesting things that we are actually doing.
It's interesting to see how it's under the hood, right? I believe Mukesh and Thiru both have points to add to this. I'll give Mukesh the first chance and then come to you, Thiru.
So when she is mentioning about the chatbot, because as of now I have experienced the current chatbot what different companies offering is not actually serving the customer. They are confusing the customer, and I experienced it. So many things needs to be done in terms of you can say again AI on AI. So chat.
Oh, it's a learning model, right? So
Correct.
it will arrive at a point when you as a leader are finally satisfied with what it is doing for the customer, because each one has a different benchmark for the wow factor, and
Correct.
especially for onboarding a customer, the wow is very, very important, because then it gives you the peg to retain, to engage them and then retain them. So maybe we reach a point in that curve where you are satisfied with the performance of your chatbots. All right, Thiru, coming to you.
Thing which Ambika was talking about the different examples, about the one you were asking about from a loan perspective, is also like in this the data plays a very, very important role.
Yeah.
We might have a wonderful CRM or post sales service, whatever tech product or a tool, but the organization has to give more importance to the data, whether it is a pre-sales data or the post-sales, the behavior data of the customer. How do you store it, and then how do they behave in terms of financial services? How do they behave with us is one thing which we can capture, but how do they behave with other lenders? There is something called a scrub data which we can take from credit bureaus. And how do you put all these data? So what we have done is create an early warning signal model, and that model will actually help what kind of reminders or what kind of conversation the agent should have with the customer, so that you know whether this customer belongs to A or B or C, so that the A goes to this level, B goes to this level, C goes to this level. So you can actually kind of identify the character of the customer through this kind of an A model or any of the data science model. That how do we integrate with the system and then present it to the people in the front of the screen, who is the agent, so that, or to the people in the field, then that becomes a very big value
Context
addition.
is important, because at the
Exactly.
end of the day, they are at the front lines of dealing with the customer. So they need the right kind of information to
Exactly.
keep that conversation going. I'm sure this can itself be a panel discussion on its own, and we've been discussing trends and challenges. I want to take the conversation now in the direction of strategies for success, because while we look at it from a broad perspective, CX is a bit murky when we look at it from an investments perspective, because as leaders, you would always be wondering, what's the ROI of my CX initiative, right? And that's something I want all of you to comment. So maybe Anand, we'll start with you and then get the rest of the panel. Measuring the impact of CX initiatives, the do's and don'ts that you would suggest, and how do you sort of walk that tightrope between short-term ROI and longer-term engagement? Because longer-term engagement is going to require more investments. The point is, how do you convince the stakeholders that they need to stay in the game to make profits out of it?
Yeah, in our case, actually, it's a pretty straightforward approach, and you'll be a little disappointed with my answer, I think. But what we've done is, so I come from a product background, and for me, one very simple philosophy I live with is any metric you choose finally has to be converted to some level of dollars or rupees or whatever your favorite currency is, right? So if you think about our core numbers, it is, like I said, retention and outcomes. Let's talk about retention for a minute. Why should retention matter? Why should people stay on our programs and continue doing these things? And what we've done is a very simple thing. we actually give our learners about 30 days to decide whether they want to continue with the program or not. If not, we give them a no questions asked, full refund, right? So we look at that as the first month within policy, refund requests. And then there are learners who after that might choose to change their mind and come to us, which typically we have a little schedule and we figure out how to handle those cases. So there's a negative case, which is somebody comes in and changes their mind, right? The second part, which is a positive use case, is we look at repeats and referrals, which is lifetime value of the user, not only through their own spend, but the referrals they bring onto the platform. And today our number is, I wouldn't say it's awesome, I wouldn't say it's really bad. We're at 35, 36% of repeats and referrals, which is a decent number is what I would say. But we've been able to actually take our retention number in both sides, which is the first 30 days or the, as we call it, week 2, week 4 retention, and program retention, and convert that to a repeat and referral number and a refund reduction number.
But how do you predict if they are top of the funnel? How are you predicting CLTV for your customers? Because at the end, at that point in time, you don't really know what's the potential for these customers to stay with and refer others, right?
Yeah, so I think, so let's open up that funnel further. So there is sort of the sales conversation, which is absolute top of funnel. In fact, the absolute top of funnel will be they're reading an article that we wrote and put on our portal. So we've got about 6 million people who are coming every month, and they're reading articles that simply created on what is data science and why should you take a career in data science. Very low intent leads don't convert usually very well. Then there are more serious conversations where people have come and browsed on our website and they're looking at a program, they have questions to ask, right? And as they go through that journey, finally the intent starts becoming more and more serious. And we've brought those conversations down to an experience and probability score. We call it lead score for that lead, right? So the moment they interact with us, they're already a number, unfortunately, right? There's a personal side, I promise you, but there's also a number behind it. If you were to come and talk to us, you're either you're a 10 out of 100 or a 20 out of 100 or a 40 out of 100. And we know exactly where you are in terms of your propensity to convert. So that's the pre-sales conversation. And that is absolutely influenced by, have you taken a previous course? Are you connected with a learner that's already referred you before? There are a lot of things that go into that lead scoring model, which plays a role. Now, let's say you come into the platform. Now, the question is, why should CX matter? Why should customer experience matter? That's where these retention numbers have been translated to specific revenue goals as well. And today, if somebody gets, actually takes a refund in the first 30 days, the salesperson loses their commission on that sale.
Oh, so you're making it directly accountable to the bottom.
Absolute. There's an accountability for experience directly to revenue. So for me, actually, I don't have to convince people that this is important. It hits our absolute top line, if that helps.
In a way, you have automated your business decisions.
Yeah, and the best part about this is that, I'm pretty impressed with some of the things that you have been doing, Anand. And I think data really plays a role, right? I mean, the important intelligent decision making that really happens comes in from the data. And I think one of the things that Gautam actually asked is that how do we really ensure that we are able to surface the right insights in front of leaders like Anand so that they can take the right call, right? I mean, the scoring that actually happens, or, how this is tying down to the metrics for every team depends upon the kind of insights that you actually get on the performance reports, drill down to an agent level, right? And that's another area where Freshworks is really adding value. And we are leveraging the AI in order to take these data-driven decisions, enable the leaders to take these data-driven decisions.
All right. Mukesh, your thoughts on this, measuring the impact of CX initiative. Maybe, Mukesh, I'll have you take the lead first. Last time Thiru did. So you take the lead first and then I'll come to Thiru.
Yeah. So when we are saying improvising the customer experience, so it's a case study basically. It's not we are doing in a routine activity. So whenever we are disbursing a loan, so we do a call to the customer and take a feedback from him about that, about the behavior of the employee, about the process and policies. It's a lengthy process, or the documentation is explained in one go, or it's a multiple communication given to a customer.
That's external facing. I'm saying from your internal company, when you're in the boardroom, right? When they're saying, you know what, we have invested so much on CX initiatives. What is the ROI that we are looking at? How does that conversation progress in your company?
So first of all, when we are saying automation of activity is directly impacting the reduction operating cost. So in terms of we required less number of employees to maintain that system, because many things are automated. So I'm carrying forwarding that retention. So whenever we are retaining the customer and offering a lower rate of interest for charging a nominal fees, because as compared to we say, let it go this customer and onboard a new customer, because onboarding a new customer is again an expense for me. So it's better to retain the existing customer. So the retention and this automation is directly impacting to my operating cost and hence increasing my ROE.
Absolutely. Considering that retention is 25 times cheaper than acquisition, that
Yeah.
comes into focus. Thiru, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I
The
would say that,
ROI aspect of CX
Yeah.
initiatives.
yeah, I can say that I can divide this into like a process indicators and then an output indicators. Maybe the process indicators, for example, is how good we are giving a customer service in terms of what is the CSAT score, NPS score, or the abandoned call percentage and stuff like that. But just for in a lighter moment, like we can have a very good NPS score or a CSAT score, but if the people who have attended that survey is only 25 percentage,
Absolutely.
then
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter.
You're basically making the data sing to you, but it's just not the right song, probably.
So we that is one thing we wanted to ensure that. See, that's where the Kinara's blended fintech model comes into picture. How do we also have this phygital presence? We have branches, and also, so how do we take that feedback in a proper way? But the main thing from an ROI perspective, obviously, as everyone said, the customer retention is a very important factor. And then the one thing what you also mentioned a little bit about is the value LTV, which is brought in. So the customer retention, at least we want that 50% of our customer comes back to us for the repeat loan, and we are almost there. We are at around 40 percentage. So what that helps is reducing the cost of acquisition. So the cost of acquisition is a very important for how much I'm going to spend to acquire a new customer, whether it's through a digital campaign or through a branch based model. But if on a monthly basis, if I'm going to disburse at least to 25 to 30% of a monthly disbursement goes to the existing customer, that itself is a very good reduction in my cost of acquisition, which will help in obviously in the reduction of OPEX, and which will give us a good ROI.
So I will also add something in this. So apart from my core product, we also do a cross selling. So this is also a part of my revenue generation in terms of increasing my ROI. So along with my home loan product, we also cross sell insurance product along with this, life insurance, health insurance, and the property insurance.
That's actually the key
Yes.
value of data right there, right? The
Right.
cross-selling and upselling aspect that you bring about. And
Yeah.
that's a nice segue to the next question but this one I'll pose to Anand. From this cross-selling and upselling perspective, sure, data comes into play right there. But we're also talking about personalization at scale. And especially for a lot of the enterprises in your space rather, they have scaled up so rapidly. So how do they do that? How do they achieve the right kind of play when it comes to personalization at scale, which ensures that cross-selling and upselling also is organically built into the system, so that as you and your products evolve, you are offering the right kind of products and services to your customers?
Yeah, and I think this one is a little nuanced, not a straightforward answer there. So, we were talking about how does customer experience drive sort of account management value as well. So I want to go back to our process, right? We have a first 30-day retention and we have a program retention. One thing we measure through that journey is what are all the key delight points that a learner might hit. And then how do we monetize these delight points into something that becomes a cross-sell, upsell conversation? So first, it's not what we upsell and cross-sell. What's the right point of time to have that conversation? That actually matters more. So if you go to them in the first date, like if you've used apps, sometimes you just install the app, immediately say, can you rate us? And I'm like, why? Why would I rate you? I don't even know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think the first important thing that we really take very seriously is what's the timing of this conversation? And we find there are 2 or 3 discussions. One is pre-sales. When you're about to buy the program, you've already made up your mind. I'm going to buy this program. I find value in this. We then ask the question, are you willing to bring your friends along? Guess what? There's something in it for you. So that's a very important point for us there. Once they're in the course, they've gone through the course, they've not dropped out, they've not taken a refund, they're serious about the program, they hit these very small high points in this program. We then provide sort of that incentive to make that happen. Our accounts team that does this upselling and cross-selling actually sits right next to the learner success team that's managing the retention. So anytime this happens, there's a dashboard that both share. They're looking at the dashboards, they're looking at the learners. These are the learners we delighted today. And we actually track appreciations that happen on social media. And we get thousands of them every month, right? Those appreciations then get fed to a sort of model where we look at what are the ones which are likely to convert. There's another aspect of it, which is we actually create sort of an entire career journey for each sort of role. So if you want to go into data, you start being a data analyst, you get to data scientist, You might then go into AI and then eventually to Gen AI. Similar on cloud, you will start with, I just want to know what cloud is. You then get into cloud, sort of sysops, DevOps, architect, there's a path. So depending on what program you're doing, where you are in that life cycle, how delighted you are, that's where the cross-selling and upselling happens. And I wish we were a loan company where we are having 50% retention. For us, somebody wants to take a cloud course, they're not interested in doing cloud again, right? So the retention actually is really, really hard for us. So for us, actually 30+% is a great number because we've convinced someone to do a program which they never intended to do, right?
That's true.
But the short of it is find the timing, get it right, figure out where they are in the journey, and then pitch the right product based on that journey that they're on.
And I think it's amazing how you have demonstrated how removing silos can work to the benefit of the company and, of course, for the customer by giving them a much, much more value-added product. All right, taking this forward, and Mukesh, coming to you, when we talk about cross-selling and upselling and everything, I want to look at it from the perspective of customer interaction. From a strategy perspective, what would you advise to the leaders watching this show in terms of how do they move away from monitoring isolated customer interactions and having a much, much more organic tracking of customers across multiple touch points, because the channels are ever expanding and the customer is no longer restricted to interacting with the brand only in one way. So across multiple touch points, across customer journeys, what are some of the strategies which remain the same in terms of their success factor?
So as you mentioning the multiple touch points. So first of all, the organization should collect the data source where these touch points are coming and analyze those data. What the customer behavior, what customer is looking for, what is the customer interest, or on the basis of that, you redefine your products according to the customer need and requirement, so that the customer is easy to approachable. Customer can easily understand your product rather than giving your product, asking a feedback from the customer which product you can say other way the tailor-made product. So these are the strategies. Other way around, you have to train your frontliners about your product and policy so that they have a clear thought on that. It's not you confuse the customer, or the frontliner is not aware about the product and policies of the company, and he also confuse the customer, and customer go away rather than taking a loan from you.
Sure.
So this is a strategy point where you repeatedly do have a training to the frontliners, understand that in point of view, new upcoming policies and products, changes in the policies, how can you, it's also behavioral training also. How do you have to deal with the customers when you are interacting with the customer? You can also mention the timings when you have to approach the customer. So these are the strategies we can.
That's very important, considering I've received messages at 1:30 a.m. asking whether I'd like to get a loan.
Correct. Yeah.
That's a fair point, and I think it's great that we bring that point across, a focus not just on CX but also EX, employee experience as we call it. All right, Ambika, let me bring you back in to get your perspective in all of this, and also to get your viewpoint on actually your offering, Freshworks Customer Service. So tell us more about how it is successful in helping its customers evaluate where their customers are at in multiple touch points.
Sure, no, absolutely. So, Gautam, I mean, honestly, I mean, when once Mukesh was speaking, this was really music to my ears, because the 3 or the 4 problems that we are really solving for through the customer service suite and recent launch that we have actually done is something, which is relevant to the expectations that are really coming in from customers across industry, right? And I would definitely chime into that, right? So all the things that Mukesh mentioned, right? Training the customer, training the agents, the frontline folks, just so that, they are able to deliver faster and relevant content to their customers, right? All of these needs a lot of training, right? And we have really seen in the past that the attrition rate in the case of agents is very, very high, right? So it becomes very difficult. It's a very big business problem to really solve for a lot of clients, wherein they really have to keep training the customers, training the agents every now and then, right? So we are actually solving for that. We are ensuring that we again leverage AI to ensure that you need not spend those hours training the agents, but the agent would actually be trained by the platform itself, right? So while they are engaging real time, while they're engaging and having a conversation with the customer, there will be insights and data that would actually be enabling them to drive that smarter conversation with their customer, right? So So the larger perspective that we are actually doing, I mean, I'll probably take a step back. So the idea that we actually have about introducing the customer service suite is to ensure that we bring in conversational support and ticketing into a single platform, right? And ensure that we really leverage AI to automate all of these, to ensure that the deflection rates are very high, and we are able to bring that personalization, which can be offered back to your customers.
Any customer use cases that you could share in terms of
Um,
the benefits that being on a single platform has brought?
Sure. So I'll just further break this down into like 4 different value statements that we are actually bringing for the customers, for the agents, for the decision makers, and as well as for the admin team, which is going to manage the platform. So the first thing is, we are enabling the brands to really engage with their customers across all channels, right? And things are changing, right? As we speak, things are changing. I mean, earlier banking and housing loans and all of that used to be very closed about the communication channel that they would want their customers to engage with, right? But now everybody has really opened up, right? We are communicating outside of the business. We are communicating on platforms like WhatsApp, Facebook, Insta, and you can't take those channels away when it comes to serious business, right? So the brands would want to engage with the customers across all of these channels, and this is what Freshworks is really bringing to the customers. You can engage with your customers. You can extend the same experience, the chatbot experience, the intelligent chatbot experience across multiple channels. And all of these would be seamless. All of these would actually get tied down into a single view, because there are impatient customers, right? I mean, I have seen my own cases where I have been very frustrated about something, and there are 3 different channels across which I'm actually trying to reach the brand, right? Now, when it actually comes to an agent, it becomes really difficult for me to really serve the same kind of a query coming in from the same customer across multiple channels. So I would want a consolidation or a view of all of these into a single, unified dashboard, just so that I'm able to deflect a lot of these through automation. So that's one of the things that we are doing. The unified customer, the agent view that I spoke about is another thing that is adding a lot of value, because we bring in context and we bring in the right data for the agent to really solve for a lot of things. The other thing that actually Mukesh brought in is, so there is a lot of cross collaboration that an agent needs to do in order to arrive at a resolution faster, right? So auto summarizing the entire engagement and the conversation that you actually had with the customer and sharing it seamlessly across all the teammates who would be working along with you in order to arrive at a resolution is further something that actually helps improve the agent efficiency. There are things like auto summary, there is tone enhancer, that there is rephrase of using the sentiments that the customer is really coming in from, picking that sentiment and ensuring that the communication is being given back at the same tone that the customer is engaging you with is another thing that is actually helping improve the agent productivity.
All right.
So these are some of the things that really, and of course we spoke about the data driven decision making, and then all of this has to be done with a platform which is easy to scale, easy to use, and easy to implement.
So
right?
you reduce headaches for your customers so that
Absolutely.
they can actually focus on what's important, growing the business. All right.
Exactly.
Let me
Absolutely.
take cue from what Ambika has said. And Thiru, any examples that you can share about AI implementations working in the back end, which has improved agent performance and improved customer satisfaction, just so that we can get stories from all of you as to
Yeah.
what your companies are doing in this space.
Yeah, definitely. From a AI perspective, like 4 years before we implemented AI based, data science based. One is the loan approval model, and then there is a collection priority model. So these two, obviously, it has been integrated with our CMS, which is the collection management system, and also with the customer management, wherever the reminders and the calls has been done to the customers, or the SMS has been. So what it does is, see, obviously we have our own mic in our app, for which is in all the vernacular languages, so that the customer have a very good experience when they navigate through the app. And I mean, even if they face any difficulty, there are chatbot in the local languages, and if they find difficulty there, then there is this immediate call center support or the on field support. These are all the regular process which we follow. But all these history is captured, and also whenever the data all about captured about the customer and the business, everything, it runs a model and it actually categorizes the customer into different risk category, which is also helpful in pricing the customer, because we are in the collateral free loan segment. So how do we use data to categorize the risk of the customer and price accordingly? That is one of the things. But from a customer perspective, which I was explaining about how it creates an early warning signal model based on the way they respond to a message, or what are the response to any of the questions asked by. For example, if you ask, okay, the repayment date is there, whether the money is already there in the account, people will say yes, it is there. People might say maybe it is there. People might say no, I'm going to deposit day after tomorrow. So these three different answers will actually go in as a data point to predict or the characterize the customer, whether this is going to be an early warning signal or it's going to be a good. So those are all the things which we capture, and the data captured on the call center, and after that when it goes to escalation to the field, how does the customer gives the promise to pay, that is also one another which is entered into our system, and that is also captured by the data science. So each and every point in time, whatever the data is captured, so that helps. How do we follow up with the customer, how do we have the relationship with customer, both in terms of repeat loans to have a maximum retention, also in terms of how do we manage and monitor the customer for effective portfolio quality. So everywhere the customer experience actually is connected to a better portfolio quality, which is very, very core and critical for our business.
All right. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to tie up a last loose end in this conversation, which is driving that innovation culture within an organization. Anand had touched upon it in terms of breaking down silos between teams so that they're all working in service of a better CX offering and a better product or a service offering. I just want to know from all three of you as to any strategies for success that you would like to share, especially since we are talking about cross-selling and upselling, and you really need to break down all those silos effectively. So what from your experiences that all of you have gone through, what strategies that you would suggest on that front? Mukesh, we'll start with you.
So we have a practice in the organization. We do a feedback from the customer as and when the customer query is resolved. We send a link to the customer and ask a feedback about how this service raised by customer is resolved properly or not properly. We take a feedback from the customer. Another way, we also take a satisfaction letter from the customer. It's not I say we resolve the customer query, but customer is not satisfied. Hence, we are taking a customer satisfaction letter from the customer. Other way, we also compile all these data, especially in terms of where customer is not raising query, raising complaints against the organization in terms of his loan, anything. So we compile this data, we create a dashboard, we analyze what set of queries are repeatedly coming, how much percentage of these set of queries are. So, and this is also discussing with the head of operations or head of departments. These are the actionable areas where we have to improvise our TAT, or we have to redefine our process so that it can be helped to the customer. So we analyze this data, entire set of where feedback, customer complaints, or regulator complaints also, or senior management complaints also. We analyze this data, and after analyzing, we find the improvement areas. We also share some appreciation letters where the customer gives some appreciation to our employees, where they have supported to end-to-end solution to their problem. So we both analyze good thing and bad thing, and we share around the organization to take a corrective action on that, so that we can give a end-to-end solution to the customer.
All right, a holistic approach shared by Mukesh. Thiru, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, overall, from a CX perspective, I would want to ask a question, or maybe think about who owns the CX in the organization. So the answer doesn't just lie. This is a customer experience team, or a operations team, or a sales team. Actually, the whole company should own the CX. If it is owned by one department, I don't think that's the right strategy. How do we bring the culture of everybody across everything, sales, pre-sales, or product, or design team, or tech team, for easy navigation? And then comes because they are just a phase, the agents or the tools or whatever. But if everyone doesn't own the customer experience, then I don't think just one department owning the customer experience will not be sufficient at all for a sustainable and a very good customer experience. Just to close on that, one thing maybe Anand also will like. I was reading somewhere. Uh, Build a product which is easy to sell rather than easy to build. So so that's a kind of strategy people are most of them I see that, okay, this is easy to do, this is very difficult, this is complicated, let's do this and let's try to do some. That will not give a good customer experience at all. So we need to think from that perspective, from a product design, tech, everything. In the end, I don't think we need a special customer service team if we do everything in proper.
That's a t-shirt which is going to be loved by the marketing team. Build a product that is easier to sell than to build, but not loved much by the product team. Arun, your summary thoughts on this, because this is an interesting point that Thiru has brought up, that don't take a cookie cutter approach to CX by just having a new department and then again saying, hey, we have a CX team working on this and the problem is solved.
Yeah, and I think, I'm going to take the 3 pillars of digital transformation in context, right? People, process, and product or technology, if you may. And, at least my perspective on this is, I frankly think people should stop talking about customer experience in a silo. So I completely agree. I think customer experience has monetary value. So let's first step back and take a question. Why does CX matter to the company? And for us, it's very simple. If you look at our business model, it's very simple. There's new revenue coming at the very top. There is friction, which is refunds, because you're losing that revenue that you worked very hard to get. And then there is accounts, repeats, referrals, things that add more value. So there is something that's coming and you lose some of it, you gain hopefully a lot more, right? So if you take it just in money terms, where does CX fit into this? First of all, you have to answer the question there. So it comes down to, how do you make sure the first experience is amazing so people don't take a refund? And how do you make sure that the repeat behavior is built through absolutely amazing delighters? So that's the first thing. That's a cultural aspect, that don't think of CX as just CX. It has a dollar figure to it, it has a rupee figure to it. And if you're not thinking dollars and monetary, frankly, nobody's going to care. So that's just very, very brutal truth from my side, right? Now, the second thing I'll tell you, we are all leaders here and we can talk about, I agree, feedback, all of that's great, right? But I'll tell you the problem is when you get to the ground level learner success manager or customer support manager, they don't understand these big words, right? So what I found is you've got to take these 3 parts, which is what you build, what you lose, and what you build on top of what you already built, right? You got to break that down to specific enabling metrics. And while the CXO level, all the leaders are looking at these 3 big revenue metrics, if you may, right? It's broken down to very, very specific customer experience metrics that have shown positive correlation to retention, adding more referral value, repeat value. And that's the goal that each team has to take. That's one. The second is, if you feel that specific technologies or capabilities allow these metrics to be achieved, these are shared goals. Like account management, the sales team and the learner success team share that goal. Retention, my software team, my software product team, and my learner success team share that goal. CSAT, the curriculum team and my learner success team share that goal. So when it comes to it, it's not one of those where you say, well, here's feedback, why don't you work on it? It is, you will not make your bonus if you don't make this number. So I'll tell you, I don't believe in motherhood and apple pie kind of stories, frankly, and so that's the brutal truth. Measure it, make sure it has a dollar figure to it, make sure there are KRAs that on a quarterly level are assigned, and that people know what their goals are. If they don't know these goals, good luck achieving these outcomes. It's not going to happen.
If there are economists watching this show, they will be fascinated with this use case of incentivization and how, when you properly share goals between teams, you achieve the right outcomes. And as you said, it's all not necessary to always think big. Sometimes thinking small does the trick for you, especially when you try to bond with the customer and make sure that the company and the employees are working towards that goal. All right, Ambika, coming to you for the last word. Your summary thoughts on this conversation around the new CX. What excites you the most as we move forward from here, and the technological curve just keeps maturing more and more?
So I think the excitement is definitely coming in from the openness that we actually see in the market today, right? Everybody is really ready to leverage technology and harness the power of technology to really make those bold decisions, right? I mean, something that people have been shying away. So the excitement really is the trends in the market. The excitement really is the openness from various industries to embrace a solution to really personalize the experience for their customers. And the excitement is really the value that you're actually able to add, and the measurability that you actually have about the value that you're extending to your customers. So I'll just keep it short, and
So all
this is
that
really the answer.
glitters will truly be gold. All right.
Absolutely.
And that's a wrap for Forbes India presents Freshworks Tech Shots, the new CX. We've explored the future of customer service in today's discussion, and our panel of experts has shed light on the path to success. Join us next time for more exciting insights. Until then, keep innovating and putting the customer at the center of your strategies. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. This is your host, Gautam Srinivasan, signing off. Have a great day.
Forbes India presents Freshworks Tech Shots, the new CX.